made it clear that democracy is at stake this November.
Democracy is at stake this November.
Democracy is at stake.
Our democracy is at stake.
The future of our democracy is at stake.
We all know democracy is at stake.
This is the most important election coming up because democracy is at stake.
Nothing less than the future of democracy is at stake.
Democracy in this country is at stake if Donald Trump is elected again. He, she writes, is the most dangerous man to ever inhabit the Oval Office.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to First Reaction TV. My name is J Mart. As you heard there, and as you've been hearing for the last 5 to 6 years now, democracy is at stake, and we must vote for Democrats if we want democracy to continue. Because if not, these MAGA extremists are going to just tear democracy away from us. So since we've been hearing the same line for the last few years now, let's go ahead and check in with the Democrats, and let's see how they're preserving democracy. Let's see how they're saving us from the MAGA extremists.
When you wake up in the morning, what do you think about? What does Vice President Harris have on her mind when she wakes up? I know how all Americans, based on where they are, have got a variety of things. But share with me, what is it that you have on your mind when you wake up every morning?
Our democracy. When I think about democracy, I think of it as its nature is there's a duality, there are two pieces to it. When a democracy is intact, it strengthens the people, it protects it and fights for fundamental freedoms, it strengthens. On the other hand, democracy, incredibly fragile. And right now, there are many forces that are attempting to purposely, I believe, weaken our democracy.
Okay, so this is great. Our vice president wakes up thinking about democracy, but she is completely worried about the threats to democracy. So let's go ahead and see what these MAGA extremists and Donald Trump are doing to threaten democracy. Well, I think it's Donald Trump, right?
Next part of the story, which is that according to a Washington Post report, the DNC has decided it will not hold any primary debates. This despite two official challengers, of course, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Marianne Williamson, who pull at roughly 14% and 5% respectively. According to recent data, leftists like former Ohio State Senator Nina Turner are calling the decision undemocratic. I'm inclined to agree.
Yeah, this is, what is he afraid of?
It's official. President Biden is running for president again because it's supposed to be we, the people, decide on who we want to represent our country. The Democratic Republican establishment has made it very clear. They don't mince words that they will not even have anybody to debate Biden. They have already decided they're going to push for Biden and Biden only. I think there's some other candidates that we're never going to even hear from or even have the opportunity to choose because the establishment has already gone all in on Biden. And I don't think that's fair to the American people.
Cannot get over the fact that the Democratic National Committee is saying there will not be a debate to decide the nominee for president. Are you kidding me? Over an 80-year-old man who, if he lives, will be the oldest sitting president in the history of the country. And if he doesn't live, has a vice president whose approval rating is worse than his. This guy is obviously declining mental faculties. You're putting him up in front of a podium with flashcards telling him who to call on and what the questions are going to be. And you're telling us there's no debate? What about the will of the people? This was a democracy of the people, by the people, for the people. If we don't have a debate, this is not a democracy by the people. It's a democracy by them.
It's whack that the DNC won't let nobody they won't do no primaries next year, man. Do a primary debate. Put Joe Biden up on that stage with Bobby Kennedy, who's challenging him, and Marianne Williamson, and whoever steps up to the plate, and let's have discussion, yo.
But I think the Democrats are the party that's hiding from debate right now. They're protecting Joe Biden as their puppet.
Wait a second here. This has nothing to do with Donald Trump. This has nothing to do with MAGA extremists refusing to have a debate or refusing to have primaries. I thought this was all about these MAGA extremists and democracy being at stake. Now, I would think that if you're a Democratic leader or the President of the United States and you thought democracy was actually at stake, democracy's on the line, the country's in peril, you would want to get up on a stage, you would want to tell the American people why it's important to vote for you, why it's important that you be the leader of this country, why it's important that you vote Democrat and do not vote for these MAGA extremists. But you don't even want to get on the stage? You don't even want to debate people in your own party? Things are starting to not add up here.
People are watching, wondering, what is the future of democracy in America?
Within 37 hours of President Biden taking the oath of office, the White House was ordering Google, ordering Twitter and Facebook to remove my accounts. They had to, in fact, internally invent a new category. So they have misinformation, disinformation. For me, they used a word called malinformation, and that means misinformation that is true, but is nonetheless inconvenient for the government, and the government wants to be taken down. What the White House was telling Twitter and Facebook is, if you don't censor Kennedy, that we will take away your Section 230 immunity. When the government can silence its critic, it has license for any atrocity.
Just this afternoon, a federal judge barred parts of the administration from contacting social media platforms about online content.
Judge Terry Doughty calling the Biden administration's efforts a massive attack against free speech and targeted suppression of conservative ideas, adding in part, quote, American citizens have the right to engage in free debate about the significant issues affecting the country.
All right, so let's do a quick recap here so far. We haven't seen anything related to a MAGA extremist. Hell, we haven't even seen anything that involves Donald Trump. But when it comes to actual democracy, whenever it comes to voting or candidates or our elected officials, the Democratic Party is refusing to even acknowledge candidates, let alone have actual debates with them for the American people to see. Then on top of that, you find that the Democratic Party in power was using their powers to censor Americans, where they were picking and choosing what you saw on a daily basis. I'm not sure how democratic that sounds, but it sounds like it's illegal, and that's what a judge found. In the judge's own words, he said that this was the biggest attack on free speech in the United States history. So when you're talking about democracy actually being at stake, I'm not sure how much worse this can get. There's actual proof of a party in our country censoring and picking and choosing what Americans see on a daily basis. On top of that, they are refusing to let the American people pick and choose which candidate they would like to actually run for office, which is the bedrock for democracy. So I don't think this can get any worse, but let's see if it does.
The state of Florida has already elected incumbent President Joe Biden as the Democratic Party nominee, even before a single resident in the state of Florida has casted a single ballot. Now, why is this the case? Well, it turns out that the state's Democratic Party has basically decided to make the most undemocratic move by refusing to hold a primary. They have canceled their Democratic primary election. So Biden will literally be the only Democrat on the ballot when the primary election takes place in Florida.
In an inexplicable and yet totally explicable move, the Florida Democratic Party has now officially put Joe Biden on the ballot in Florida, canceling their primary and effectively making it so that there will be no democracy in the state of Florida for Democrats. Put this, please, up there on the screen. So you can see them chanting 4 more years. The thing is that they chanted it before there was ever going to be a primary.
Hey everybody, what happened in Florida yesterday is a tragedy and a travesty. The Florida Democratic Party decided, just a handful of people, decided to disenfranchise millions of Democratic voters in Florida by saying we're not going to have a presidential primary. I'm running for president. There are others running for president as Democrats. And this is the kind of stuff that happens in Tehran, not in Tallahassee.
It's worth noting as well, there's one person who could put an end to all this craziness, and that's President Biden. President Biden should simply make a phone call, say this isn't right, make sure it's changed, and it would be.
such a great point. If I was the president, I'd be like, oh, Marianne and Dina running against me. Great, no problem. Let's hear it out.
It is hurting the Democratic Party and its chances for 2024 that they are acting this way. Cenk, Dina, and I are not hurting the Democratic chances in 2024. They are.
The irony and the hypocrisy of a Democratic Party that claims to be, quote unquote, saving democracy by literally canceling democracy in the state of Florida is quite something.
Whenever, look, they are trying to rig, they are not trying. They are rigging it completely for Biden's benefit.
Just when you think things couldn't get any worse, the Democrats fully outdo themselves here. They decided to cancel and rig an entire state primary election for the President of the United States, while that candidate is running on a one-ticket item. Democracy's at stake. What do you do when democracy's at stake? Let's take away the people's right to vote. You can't make this stuff up. You just can't make this stuff up. Now, with all that being said, let's go ahead and hear a few words from former President Barack Obama.
What I know about Joe, what I know about Kamala, is that they actually care about every American. And that they care deeply about this democracy. They believe that in a democracy, the right to vote is sacred, and we should be making it easier for people to cast their ballots, not harder.
All right, so there you have it. What he knows about Joe is that Joe cares about every American. Joe values democracy, and Joe and Kamala will do everything to earn your vote, including replacing everybody's name on the ballot except their own. You know, democracy at its finest. So finishing this up, the MAGA extremists have nothing to do with canceling debates. They have nothing to do with canceling primaries. They have nothing to do with rigging the state primary in Florida. They have nothing to do with the Democratic Party's decision to rig, to censor, and to do everything they can to stay in power. They have nothing to do with their own actions. The Democratic Party is responsible for the Democratic Party's actions. So whenever you go out and vote this next election cycle, please think wisely who you're voting for and why you're voting for them. Because for a party that's against free speech, that's for censorship, and that will do anything in their power to make sure that you don't have the right to vote for the candidate that you want, I can't see any reason to vote for a party that values that kind of behavior. But I really appreciate you watching this video. Please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. Please check out some of my other videos. I appreciate all your guys' support, and thanks for watching.
There's something else at stake. Democracy itself.
But we also have to look ahead, because you know what? Our opponents certainly are. Right-wing extremists already have a plan to literally steal the next presidential election.